I was making decisions based on what I thought other people would like me to do with the career choices. My dad passed away towards the time that I quit. Death puts a lot into perspective. How to think from a business perspective and not just like about the UI. People kind of have that perspective that design is just going to be the UI. Sometimes we look at people that like have success or maybe have a big moment that's very public and think like, wow, like, you know, what are they doing that I'm not or something? How long do we have?
We never rehearsed this, just so you guys know.
I need to go back and watch your video.
好的，我是乔先生，欢迎回到Unblock。今天又回到我们边设计边谈这个单元。那这次我觉得邀请到的来宾呢，非常非常的特别，他有很丰富的经历，那同时他还选择一个可能不是那么传统的一条道路。Let's welcome Sera.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Sera has a great resume working as a product designer. She has worked at Webflow, MessageBird, Hired, all these places that you might have heard a little bit about. But recently she started her own company called The Craft. Sera, tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm originally from Hawaii, and that's where I am right now, where we're recording this. I went to UC Berkeley, was originally going to go into law, and then ended up working in tech, finding design and being really, really happy doing designs. Since then, I've been just kind of grinding at product design, working on different teams, working at different companies, getting experience, and then lately growing what was a side hustle into a full-time business.
You've made a lot of bold decisions in your life. Let's start with the first key milestone you've had. What made you interested in design?
Yeah, so this goes back to my childhood. It's funny, I came home recently and I went through some old boxes of like school projects as a kid, and I found like a middle school project where I had written like an image of myself and put like world's best designer. So it was so funny to like see that,
awesome.
You know, yeah, as a kid that I was thinking like that. But I think honestly, I just grew up doing a lot of art and being more like a visual person. In high school, I did a lot of AP art and had thought that I was going to go to a design school. And, you know, Asian mother. So yeah, she was kind of like, we're not doing that. Like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. Exactly, yeah. And I ended up going to UC Berkeley and in a very roundabout way coming back to design. It's so stereotypical now because I feel like everyone talks about it, but it's like you can be a lawyer or, oh, maybe you should be a doctor. You'd be a really good doctor, you know? And so like just those stereotypical careers. And I didn't really grow up aware of the tech industry, especially being out in Hawaii and not in California. So I think it's, you know, partly exposure and partly feeling that art wasn't going to be respected and that I might struggle as an artist, even though design is not art. So when I was deciding to do design and deciding to take a boot camp, actually, I really struggled between, do I want to be an engineer or do I want to be an artist? Because I had already started learning coding.
A lot of people that I've met when they're thinking about picking careers, obviously money is always like one of the biggest things. Engineers probably would get a better jump start when it comes to compensation. But what made you decide to become a designer?
I think that's true. I think engineers generally at the same level would get paid more. I guess I would also add to that, that if you're really good at what you do, I think you'll get paid very well no matter what. What really helped me decide was thinking back to like, what are my natural skills? Like, what am I naturally good at? What do I naturally gravitate towards? And what was I spending my time doing as a kid? And all of that kind of pointed towards design and not engineering. Design just fits so well with my skills. I think I'm a little bit more people-oriented, more empathetic, more visual. I think my skills align more there than with like databases or something. You know,
and there's nothing wrong if you love a database, right? I guess.
No, you know, I mean, I wish I was good at making databases.
What I really like about your story is that you found your passion, whether you have to keep learning or not. If you have interest in that particular domain, you would be picking up skills a little more naturally because learning is like playing for you.
Yeah, I think that's a good point actually, is that I just remain really curious about this industry, and like to some extent you have to keep learning if you want to stay relevant.
You've been to so many different tech companies. What are the things that you consider when you decide if you want to take one job?
Yeah, I like to actually think about my own personal values. I think what a lot of juniors miss is that no company will be perfect. Any company you go to will have problems. and you need to figure out like which problems are you okay with. For me, some of the things that I really learned were important to me was having strong leadership. So having like a leadership that really clearly cascades down or has strong communication, that's transparent about revenue, that's transparent about planning, and ideally that really involves the team in the planning and puts them at the center of that processes. Having a design system, I think, is really important, especially if you're at a bigger company. I can understand why a smaller one might not have one yet, but I think if you're at a big company and there's no design system, it gets messy really quickly. And culture, I think, really being able to learn from other people. So looking for other strong designers on that team, or even product managers or engineers, it can be anyone, but I want to be able to learn from the people that I work with. So many people coming into the industry, they try to go for big companies like Google or Netflix or Meta. Actually, there's quite a big benefit for people choosing a small startup because they'll have a lot more responsibility. They'll learn faster. They'll work like with more people and maybe more higher ups because the company is so small. There's a little bit more like flexibility and there's less hierarchy at that point. In a sense, choosing growth at that stage when you're young and it's not so important to make a ton of money, sure, Meta might pay you more, but at the end of the day, you might grow more at a small company.
We're on the complete same page. Actually, we never rehearsed this, just so you guys know.
I need to go back and watch your video. My first job was a startup and I really, really enjoyed it. So I think, yeah, more people should consider startups.
When you left Webflow, started your own company, tell me a little bit about your thought process. Were there pushes? Were there pulls? Like what was happening in your life that helped you make that decision?
Oh, how long do we have? When I was in Amsterdam, I started a YouTube channel, and that was sort of the beginning of all of this. Like I started the YouTube channel, was doing all educational videos essentially on product design. And then I ended up doing coaching as a result of that because I started getting a lot of questions. I realized from coaching that I really enjoy it. From coaching, I registered a company and it kind of snowballed from there. What's interesting about the company, and I think the way that it feels very approachable for me, is that everything happened very incrementally. So I think sometimes we look at people that like have success or maybe have a big moment that's very public and think like, wow, like, you know, what are they doing that I'm not or something. But I think the truth is there's like a lot, like years of work behind that moment of success that were behind closed doors that we didn't see. For me, I had always thought that I wanted to start my own business. Well, always, a few years back, I would say. From a few years back before starting it, I knew that I wanted to go that route. For me, it was more about what can I create myself? How can I be my own boss and just have a lot of flexibility? I don't mind working hard, but I really value having that sort of freedom with my time.
Doing it full time, it also meant that you had to leave Webflow. Was that a hard decision? Obviously, a lot of people they felt lucky if they could join Webflow, right? What was going through your head?
You know, in an ideal world, I would have loved to kind of keep Webflow and run my own business, but that's just not possible, right? So I think in that sense, it wasn't a hard decision because I was very clear on what direction I wanted to go in. And I really wanted to lift the ceiling in a way. I feel like as a full-time employee, you're always going to be capped on your potential, on what you can do, your earnings. Someone else is determining your path. Someone else is determining your level. It depends on the company if they need you to become the next level up, whatever that is, you know, a senior, a manager, whatever. In a sense, you don't have too much control. I think a lot of entrepreneurs would actually say full-time employment is more risky than being an entrepreneur. I really want to diversify my income and I don't want to rely on one source. Honestly, it was already a really rough period for me because I think you knew that, but my dad passed away towards the time that I quit. He passed away and then I took a leave of absence from Webflow, and I think death puts a lot into perspective. It was already something I was very aware of because my dad was sick since I was like 8 years old. So from a very young age, I had to think like, you know, what if something happens? Like he's really ill. What if he's not going to be there? So I think I always kind of had that in the back of my head. Like I need to make decisions based on what I feel is right and not feel like I need to do what other people expect me to do or what's going to conform with society. Of course, this changes as you get older because you become more comfortable. But I think at some point I was making decisions based on what I thought other people would like me to do, or my parents or whatever, you know, with the career choices. And at some point I was like, oh, now I'm doing exactly what like they said that would be good, and I'm not happy. I was in law, working in corporate law, and I was like, I don't enjoy this. So I think it was at that point that I kind of rethought my whole strategy. And I also read a book by, I think it's Robert Kiyosaki. Do you know which one I'm talking about? Rich Dad
Poor Dad. Yeah.
Yeah, and that book had a really big impact on me because I feel like when you come from an immigrant family, you have this perspective like, oh, you need to like get an education, or, if you have a PhD, people will really respect you. But it was actually like really eye-opening in that sense, that being an entrepreneur might give you more ability to control your destiny in a way.
Let's talk about your awesome business. I'm going to list down all the links if you want to find more about Sera in the description.
So the Craft is an American consulting and education company. It really started with consulting. That's the way that I initially created enough revenue to bootstrap the education side of the business. My goal is really to continue to do both because I really enjoy doing the work. To some extent, I feel like I can't give people a good education if I'm not doing the work myself. So I actually find that really an important aspect of both parts. Now we are at the launch of our first bootcamp. It's been a really exciting journey. I made mistakes in the intro course. One of the biggest just kind of being like, if you don't tell people about it, they won't come because they won't know it exists. Coming from a design background and not being a salesperson or a marketer, I have developed those skills for sure now. I know that I would not have learned nearly as much if I was working at a full-time job. I'm learning in different ways, I should say. As a business owner, you do have to become a generalist. The bootcamp cohort, we filled the spots for the first cohort. We're keeping it very small because, especially in the beginning, I really want to focus on quality over quantity.
What is the expected outcome for the bootcamp?
My intention was that they get their first tech job. What's been really interesting about the applicants is that some applicants already have experience doing product design or graphic design or freelance product design. And we've actually gotten quite a few applicants applying from other boot camps, which I found really strange. Yeah, kind of concerning, to be honest, because boot camps are very expensive. So I'm interested in diving in more to why they feel they need another boot camp. Our boot camp is really different in a sense because I'm creating it and I'm an experienced product designer, and I'm really focusing the bootcamp on the gaps that I felt that I graduated with. So I'm focusing a lot on like critical thinking, how to think from a business perspective and not just like about the UI, for example, which I think a lot of people kind of had that perspective that design is just going to be the UI. I had that perspective, I know, going in.
I hope that, there's going to be a next season pretty soon for people who didn't get a chance to participate. Thank you again, Sera, for joining us today. And if anyone wants to know more about Sera, I highly recommend her channel. There's a lot of belief system, so to speak, as a designer that I have similar to Sera's. And I think those are the core skill sets you should take and learn, especially during this time when a lot of the UI work or beauty work can be done by AI. Take a look at her channel for sure. And of course, her bootcamp as well if you are interested in starting your design career.
Thanks so much for having me.